be talking today about some of the impact of being involved in a serious event where your life has been threatened and you've been forced to defend yourself. Means basically someone has attacked us or tried to attack us, and we've been forced to use some kind of violence to protect and defend ourselves. You need to be cognizant of the fact that you have committed what our society considers a felony crime, an assault and or a homicide. You have put yourself at legal risk, and just need to be aware that along with that risk comes a variety of responsibilities, and we're talking right now about taking the responsibility ahead of time to understand what you might be facing so that you can prepare to deal with the aftermath. Because the aftermath will include two different areas. One is the emotional, psychological survival, and the area is your legal survival. Those two things are intimately intertwined and they cannot be separated because each one is going to affect the other. So let's talk a little bit about your emotional, psychological survival. Fortunately, most people are naturally resilient and they will not go on to develop chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. About 10% will do that. In the immediate aftermath of one of these events, everybody's going to be upset. That's perfectly normal. We call that acute stress disorder. Most people will resolve that reasonably quickly, assuming that there's nothing unusually bad going on during the aftermath. Then most people take a few weeks, maybe up to a month, to continue to resolve those issues and calm down. And the event really isn't completely over with because you now have to be deciding, meeting with your attorney, deciding whether you're going to cooperate and give statements with the investigation. So you have a whole bunch of issues to deal with, dealing with your friends and your family members who may be upset about what happened to you. So you've got a big job ahead of you once this event is over with. And as you proceed through this, you just need to be thoughtful about what are you doing to contribute to that survival. And that's going to, all of this task that you're dealing with that will contribute to the acute stress disorder going on for a while. But typically most people are going to get through that, and you may never be the same, but you're not going to be worse off than you were before emotionally and psychologically. About 10% of people will go on to develop chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. We're not sure why that is. Like everything else about us, it's probably some kind of a complex combination of our genetic predisposition and the sum total of our life experiences. For those 10% who do develop chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, and we start calling it that when a month has gone by and you're still feeling a lot of disruption in your life and a lot of symptoms. At that point, that's when you really should be thinking about going to see a trauma therapist and getting specialized trauma-focused psychotherapy to help you move beyond that. And letting it go on and on is not really your best option because we now do have some very innovative and good treatments for that. So there's no reason to suffer. But chances are you're going to be fine. But if you are one of those, you just need to be aware of that. Sometimes you might be fine, but your friends or your family members might be sufficiently upset. People can actually develop chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, not because of what happened to them directly, but because of what happened to their loved one. And they may now be very concerned for your safety. One of the things that happens to us in these events, whether it happens to us directly or happens to someone that we care about, is it's a stark reminder that the world isn't quite as safe as we thought it was. And that's one of the big sort of can be life-changing insights that these events give us. Most of us go along in our life. We're very fortunate to live in a civilized society where most of us can go through our life with a peaceful and safe existence. And we know that bad things can happen. We know we could get into a car wreck, we could be assaulted, one of our children could get sick and die. But most of us cope with these terrible events by taking normal precautions that we think will keep us safe and then engaging what I call healthy denial, but I'm careful it won't happen to me. And chances are you're probably right. When one of these events does happen to us, it can really throw us for a loop, and it can be a brutal reminder. It can happen to me, in fact it just did. And that can change our worldview forever. And for some people it's very disconcerting. They want to get back to that safe spot that they were beforehand, but once you've jumped over the fence you really can't jump back again. Sometimes people find that it gives them a new insight into life they didn't have before. And sometimes they will say, you know, I would never want to go through that experience again, but I would not give up what I've learned from it for anything. And that's what we call post-traumatic growth. In fact, sometimes people can come out on the other side of these very disturbing experiences feeling that they are enhanced in some way. So it's not all doom and gloom. Some people will have some chronic issues with this, other people won't, and most of us are going to assimilate this experience and go on and be just fine. Just so you're aware, chronic post-traumatic stress disorder is a intensification of things that we can often experience in our daily life. Things like sometimes we might find ourselves thinking about some upsetting thing that happened to us in the past. We might have a nightmare. We might feel bummed out every once in a while or anxious over something. That's just the normal ups and downs of everyday life. Everyone has those experiences, and if you've been through a traumatic event, aspects of that might occasionally get drawn into these normal ups and downs. Chronic post-traumatic stress disorder is a great intensification of that, where you find yourself dwelling and reliving the experience in a much more intense way over and over in ways that you feel you often don't have control over. Maybe you're having very frequent nightmares, you're thinking about it all the time, to the point where it's really starting to disrupt your ability to have a normal daily life. And you may experience a variety of other issues, depression and withdrawal, difficulty relating to others. These are just signs that your brain is still working to get back to normal, and if it's not doing it in a timely fashion, we're looking at, hopefully within a month you're feeling like you're in good control, then that's when you probably need to get help. And just be aware that, that this can happen to your loved ones, your colleagues, your friends, your family members that have care about you, and they don't like what happened to you either, and this can have an impact on them.